Hey, what's up my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you 7 books that I think will help you, or at least have helped me a great deal with my awakening process, my ascension process. These are books that people, I believe, will enjoy if you're going through an awakening. Now, I read different books depending on the situation, depending on what I'm going through. And this is I'm going to break up this video into 7 different types of books for 7 different types of situations that are all relevant to the awakening. And then I'm going to share a book that I really enjoyed from each category. So I'll just get right into it. Number 1, we're going to walk here. Number 1, I'm going to just real quick start off in a more of a fun way and share with you. I found it to be very helpful to read novels. I read a lot of nonfiction, but novels about characters that in a sense about personal and spiritual transformation just can be it can just feel very good. It really helps you feel not alone. I remember the book I'm going to suggest in this category is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I think. It's one of the best-selling books of all time. It's an awesome book, and it's about a character, a younger kid, who goes out to find what I think the way they referenced it was their personal legend, I think it's their personal legend. It's kind of the same thing as finding your purpose, but he embarks on this spiritual quest, basically, where he leaves the comfort of where he grew up, and he goes off on this massive journey, and there's all these different trials and tribulations and ups and downs and spiritual lessons gleaned along the way. And I read this at a point in my life where I was at one of my darkest lows ever, and I was so just befuddled with life that I just sat there on the couch. I felt like almost incapacitated, and I read that book almost in one day. I just sat there and read. I didn't eat, just read that book, and that it really helped lift me out of my funk and restore my faith, because it was just so spot on relevant to what I was experiencing, and it really reminded me that there are lows on this, but as you see the character progress through the book, there are all these victories as well. So I can't make a video recommendation, a book recommendation video without mentioning The Alchemist. Number 2 is I'll go into right now. I'll share with you a book that I believe is very helpful in assisting you in understanding some of the mechanics and just the process that you're going through, the awakening process. And with that knowledge and understanding, it can help you really frame a lot of the more challenging aspects of it in a very positive way. And I like this spiritual teacher. His name is Ascension. He's an enlightened master. He's an actual master. He resides in the enlightened state, and he's got a bunch of books out. And I like him in particular because he, unlike some of the more other awakened teachers like Eckhart Tolle, who I also love, he actually was on a spiritual path for a long time. He didn't just become awakened. He kind of pursued enlightenment from the time he was a real little kid. So he really understands the actual process and the mindset of the seeker very beautifully. And he just has a very awesome way of explaining it. So he has this book called The End of Your World, Adashanti, The End of Your World, and it really just describes different stages, just the process of a spiritual awakening in a very informative way that has helped me a lot. I've read that book many times. In fact, it's like all chewed up. It's all like mangled and chewed up for my dog, and yet I still carry it with me. Most of my books are in Michigan in storage. When I moved to California a while ago. But that's one, even though it was all messed up, I took it with me because I know I'd be going back to it at times. Number 3, this category is to help actually expand and transform your consciousness. I like the most powerful book I've read that falls under that category is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's kind of a mainstream book, and yet it's just so impactful, so powerful. There was a time when I used to own my gym, and I bought like 8 copies on Amazon because I felt so strongly about that book, and I would give them away as gifts to people who I felt would benefit from it. And I gave them to some clients. I still have a few. But anyways, in fact, I have my coaching clients read this type of book. I call it meditative reading, because it's not reading like the Adashante book. It could, I guess, the one I recommended could somewhat fall under this category, but that's more of like an informative book. The book I'm recommending, The Power of Now, it's not something you read to learn. It helps point you into the now, basically, in a very profound way. It helps really shed light on the ego and causes you to really start looking at the thinker in your mind in just a much more, it makes it more clear, that differentiation between the true you and the thinker, the ego. And I've read that book several times. I have the audio book. I have the Practicing the Power of Now audio book. And I've gone through it many, many times. And every time I go back into it, it's neat to see how much I've changed since the last time. So I can't have a video of this nature without mentioning that. Or any other book by him does the same thing. I've read all of his books and they're all great in my opinion. Number 4, this 4th category, it's going to be about books that blow your mind wide open, that will rip you open as far as shattering your preconceived ideologies and just your concepts of reality. There's just so indescribable amount of depth and complexity to who and what we are, where we are, and what's all involved. And there's this woman, Dolores Cannon, who does a brilliant job of conveying that information. It's not her information. She's a hypnotherapist, and she spent basically her whole life bringing people into these deep states of trance where she could, in a sense, take this for what you will, communicate with like the soul of these people. And just some of the information about reality that has come through, it's just so mind-bending. And yet, I would bet a great many of you will find yourself resonating with it big time. There'll be a ring of truth to it, as wild as it is. So she's got a ton of books out. I've read a lot of them, not all of them, but I've read probably a half a dozen at least. And they all will have you up at night, like just pondering your existence and the nature of reality. And oh my goodness, it really helps put our lives into a proper context. So my favorite book she wrote is called The 3 Waves of Volunteers. It talks specifically about the light workers and this mass awakening we're going through. So definitely check that out. This other category, I would label helping you find your purpose, or inspiring you to embark on the courageous journey of finding your purpose. That idea resonates with you. It did with me big time. And there's a book I really like called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it just talks about really being honest with yourself and finding what he calls your zone of genius. So we have a bunch of zones. We have a zone of incompetence. For me, that's like mechanical thinking and like building like house repairs, that kind of stuff. That's my zone of incompetence. I'm a total ditz when it comes to like fixing a leaky faucet. Even with like YouTube videos and helping, I'm not good at that. I don't know why, but I'm not. So it doesn't make sense to spend much time doing that because it's an inefficient usage of my time. There are things I'm naturally good at that I should optimize and spend as much time as I possibly can doing that. We have a zone of competence, which is where most people are stuck at, which is something that might not be so much in alignment with your purpose or your greatest talent, but it's something that you've put a lot of time into and you've become quite good at. For me, that was being a personal trainer. I'm going to turn the other way. I was into fitness my whole life. Since I was like 13 or 14, I started working out and was basically obsessed with it ever since. Once I realized that I could like do these exercises and change like the look of my body, it was just fascinating to me. And I just studied it big time. The way I study this stuff now, I studied that same passion I had in the direction of learning about nutrition and exercise. And I was just really good at it. I was a very good trainer. But it's not really my zone of genius. My zone of genius is helping people transform on a deeper level. Being able to kind of convey the inner processes, the mindset of someone who's going through real transformation, whether it be battling addiction or going through an awakening, or even people who are dieting. I was really good at helping people lose body fat by getting them real deep and in touch with themselves, because that's a very emotional journey for a lot of people as well. And so that's what I've come to kind of find. That's my zone of genius. So now that's what I focus on. I talk to people, whether, when I was a personal trainer, maybe 1 out of 10, if I was lucky, gave a shit about transformation and personal transformation. Most of them just wanted to lose weight. So my zone of genius kind of would fall on deaf ears or just not even come into play at all. Now I target people and I talk to people who are going through a spiritual awakening, because they're going to be my kind of people who will, I think, benefit from what I have to say and appreciate it. And they're just the people I like to work with. I feel like I can make the greatest impact. But anyway, that's my zone of genius. So now it was tough, because for a while my purpose was something I wasn't quite doing. I was putting a lot of energy and time, and my job, in a sense, was founded upon my zone of competence. So I had to take that proverbial big leap, but that book, The Big Leap, by Gay Hendricks, inspired me to do so, by kind of breaking down the logic of like how this is actually best excuse me this is actually best for you in the long run, because he kind of had to do something very similar. This next category is what I call empowered reading that'll make you more of a badass, more of a stoic, and able to handle the challenges that life presents you. I've read a lot of books about this, so I found this to be very relevant, just very relevant to really train my mind to think this way. But I think a book that really sums up that mindset and is very helpful, with just a lot of different, I feel like that book sums up that category beautifully. And the book is called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It just references different like Stoic philosophers and situations throughout history where people would benefit and advance themselves immensely. That was initially that advancement was kind of stemmed out of some kind of obstacle. Like the big problems that come into your life, they're uncomfortable obviously, but they tend to be what inspires you to take a new course of action that will eventually be a big success or a big strive forward. And just reading that book, if you're going through a time when you're meeting a lot of challenges, it can be very helpful and empowering, and it can really help not only alter your perspective so you can see it in the situations in a more positive way, and that's nice as well for like the peace of mind, but it also might help you really maximize the potential benefits that are inherent with all the obstacles. The obstacle is the way. Those are your solutions in disguise. It's just the very beginning of them. And that book just did a real good job for me of hammering that point home to me. And number 7, this falls under a different category. I read a lot of books like this now. It's about like productivity. And this is where you kind of come a little ways and you're really ready to ground and express your spiritual wisdom into your reality in a very physical, nuts and bolts, practical way. It's not always easy. It's not easy to ground this light in a creative way that's going to benefit people where they're at. So The name of the book is No Excuses by Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is like a sales expert. He's like a businessman, but I really like him because he, like I was with personal training, he really dives into the success mindset and the psychology, and just has all these different little simple ways of breaking down complex emotional situations into a way that really provides you with a lot of hope and also a practical way of doing things. I know that sounds kind of vague. I'm trying to think of an example. Like one of the techniques that I sometimes make my clients do that was real helpful to me, it talks about writing down 4 or 5 of your big goals and giving them a deadline, and then taking each one of those goals and then writing down 20 different things you can do that will help you reach that. And he's like, the first 10 are kind of like easy. You just kind of spit them out. Those last 10, they're really going to stretch your creativity. And I found that to be the case. I do that with myself now. And it's a phenomenal mental exercise that I still do. And not only that, it's just then he says, okay, now you right away start working on one of those steps. And that's kind of how I accomplish my goals now. I decide what I want. I give it a deadline. That kind of says to myself that I'm taking it seriously, not just I want to be more abundant, I want to be more enlightened. That's too vague, and those things never really get done. It's I want this by this date. And then, okay, how? What are you going to do? Well, here's 20 things. If I do all 20 of those things, there's a pretty damn good chance it's going to make it happen. Anyways, that's just an example of the kind of content contained within that book. There's, I don't know, dozens or more other little tricks like that when put into action, it's a very action-oriented book. If you can read the book and appreciate the concepts, but if you actually follow what he says in it, you'd be maybe pretty blown away at what you can accomplish in life, whatever your goals might be. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my little book recommendations. I used to do these videos when I first started my YouTube channel more, and some of these books actually are kind of repeats, but I wanted to start sort of a new saga and see where you guys are at, see if you guys enjoy this, because I just think reading is so important and so helpful in so many different ways, and I really do enjoy talking about books, especially ones that have related to my own journey. So hopefully you get something out of it. Let me know in the comments, please, if you don't mind. Regardless, have an amazing day. I'll leave links to all the different books in the description box if you guys want to check out any of the ones I listed specifically. Otherwise, I encourage you to kind of build your own book list, and maybe you can share them as well. I'd be interested to see what you guys are reading. Have an amazing day. Love you all. Namaste.